Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
Okay, ranking season continues here on Purple Daily. It's Mackey, it's Judd, the sports dad. Our guy Declan is Twins beat podcasting right now. He's going to Target Field for the matinee here. By the way, if you are a Twins fan, maybe you're a crossover Twins and Vikings fan, we do have a brand new Score North Twins Show YouTube channel that we just launched a few months back. You can either find it on the Purple Daily YouTube channel homepage. There's a link to it. Or you can just type in Score North Twins Show in the YouTube search bar, and you can click subscribe. Also, if you want to find it on Apple and Spotify, it's baseball season. It's also off-season speculation for Judd's Hockey Show and Flagrant Howls. We have a whole collection of Minnesota sports podcasts here at Score North if you want to branch out from Purple Daily. But people have asked us, and we have in turn said, keep the suggestions coming. Can you rank this? Can you rank that? It's kind of the non-news period of the offseason.
Right.
So we ranked number 2 wide receivers. We just recorded something for July 4th that's going to be former Packers that became Vikings. That's a Purple Over Beers at Red Cow in Uptown. And today, I bring to you 32 NFL head coaches ranked and categorized in different tiers or bins, if you prefer bins.
All right.
Where does Kevin O'Connell rank is going to be the big question here.
Yep.
This was a really interesting exercise because it's really, I think if you like your coach, you like Kevin O'Connell, or if you're, a Packers fan and you like Matt LaFleur, I think your first instinct is to say, yeah, we have a top 10 coach. But then when you start actually ranking the coaches, there's some pretty damn good coaches or coaches with great resumes in the NFL right now.
And it's become a young man's game, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of the veteran guys have been cleared out. And so now it's a lot of offensive minds who are really smart there's a lot of good minds. It feels like right now, like a lot of sharp. Now that does not make them all great head coaches, because as we've talked about, you can be a great football mind, but not head coach material. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting time, I think, for this list, because, 5-10 years back, right? It was a lot of standbys. There was a lot of guys that had been around for a while, or guys that got chances when they weren't young. It feels like, and I might be wrong, Phil, on timing here. It feels like the McVay hire sort of really shifted, and his subsequent success shifted the age bracket. Don't you think?
Yeah, you're more likely to take a shot on someone in their 30s that is a schemer as a coordinator, maybe a fast riser, than hire John Fox for the 4th time.
Yes.
Or convince.
Which, by the way, I welcome.
Yeah.
I
agree.
This.
Yes. So, all right, we'll go from the bottom all the way up, and I'll give you the different tiers or bins. I'm going to call them bins. I think bins.
You call them what you want.
These
we talked
coaches
about
and
this.
bins.
Yeah, I think it's very fair.
So the first bin is the Welcome to the NFL bin.
Okay.
Number 32, Dave Canales, Carolina. Number 31, Brian Callahan, Tennessee.
Yep.
Number 30, Mike McDonald, Seattle. 29, Gerard Mayo, New England. And then I'm also going to put 28, Antonio Pierce, Raiders, in this. I know he took over as an interim, showed some good signs, but this is your first chance now. Interim tag removed. You are the Raiders head coach. So he falls into the Welcome to the NFL head coaching ranks bin.
So are these, 5 names? Are these 5 guys ranked in or just placed into a bin, but there's no so it doesn't start at 32 and go?
No, they're at 32 Canales.
Okay, so you are ranking them as well as.
It's hard to know for sure, but I'm putting Panthers guy 32 because good luck with that organization and that crazy owner.
Yeah.
Mayo, I'm putting Antonio Pierce at the top of that pile because we saw some positive results when he was an interim coach.
Gotcha.
Players seem to love him so far.
What do you think of the Titans?
Interesting.
Callahan was with the Bengals. His old man coached, forever. But he was with the Bengals. I think he's a good offensive mind. And I don't know if I don't think the Titans are a lost cause. I think the Patriots are right now. The Panthers, I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. I think that's probably
Yeah.
career
Seattle has talent.
suicide. Seattle has talent. As you said about Pierce, he got a bite at the apple and actually I think did a pretty nice job. And the Titans intrigue me at least.
The Titans have added a lot of talent in the offseason. You know, they went out. Well, first of all, DeAndre Hopkins is now their number 2 wide receiver, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Calvin Ridley is in the mix. So they've got some weapons. A lot of it depends on how Will Levis turns out. Is he going to wind up being a franchise quarterback? But yeah, they made some additions. I'd have to pull up a list of like their free agent moves from 3 months ago, but it was like they were one of the most active teams in terms of adding guys and swinging deals. But you know, we don't really know much about Brian Callahan as a head coach.
Right.
So those are the bottom 5. Okay, then we get to the next bin, which is the thank God for second chances bin. Number 27, Raheem Morris, coming back after a few years with the Rams and being a coordinator. And then number 26, Dan Quinn of the Washington Commanders. Now, he went to a Super Bowl in Atlanta back like 8 years ago and had a 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl.
Yep.
And then it was all kind of downhill from there. They couldn't climb back up the mountain. He winds up getting fired a couple years later. It was bad, but impressive work with that Dallas defense. How will he fare in Washington? Another train wrecky organization, new ownership, so we'll see. But, I mean, I thought about putting Dan Quinn higher because he does have an established track record as being a pretty successful head coach before. But he's got to climb. He's got to earn it here on the Mackey head coach ranking. So he's 26. Raheem Morris, who had a rough go of it in Tampa. But they kind of set him up like they really set him up to fail, it sounds like, with resources. And so this is more of a fair shot. He interviewed with the Vikings.
He got to sit down. And he's got an interesting background because he's a defensive guy, but he was actually moved, was it as an assistant with the Falcons that he was moved to the offensive side of the ball?
Yeah.
Like, so he's got an interesting background. I guess my question, and this probably applies more to the GM Terry Fontenot than Raheem Morris, is what are you doing in Atlanta? Like, you needed defense and you took another quarterback, but you had just signed a very expensive one.
Mm-hmm.
Feels like the Falcons, unless there's some grand plan I just totally don't get here.
Yeah.
Feels like there is some immediate dysfunction that was unnecessary.
I agree. Just weird vibes to start off. You know, we've talked about it all the time, and we don't need to talk more Kirk Cousins by any means on this show. But yeah, like Raheem Morris, in some ways, hey, you've got a professional quarterback and weapons, and there's some interesting pieces up and down the field, but a weird quarterback room. Mm-hmm. Okay, the next bin is the start updating your LinkedIn profile bin.
Uh-oh.
It includes these 4 guys. Number 25, Jonathan Gannon, Arizona. Let's come back to him in a second.
Okay.
Number 24, Matt Eberflus, Chicago Bears. 23, Robert Saleh, New York Jets. And this seems a little unfair because the Saints did go 9-8 last year, but I'm putting Dennis Allen, number 22 here in this bin. Just kind of feels like a placeholder coach in New Orleans.
Yes.
Not the most inspiring guy.
Are all 4 of these guys with defensive backgrounds?
Yes. So Jonathan Gannon, and you know, he had won the first year in Arizona. Like, it's hard to judge a guy after 1 year, but he's a defensive guy with Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. needing some molding.
Arizona's a dumpster fire again.
Yeah.
The Bidwells don't, you know, they had a brief run of competence, but they might be, now that I think about it, with Dan Snyder gone in Washington, they might be the worst ownership group in the league right now. Like, as far as just being buffoons.
Bad facilities, yeah.
And they fire coaches immediately, and they might be atop that list now. So yeah, I could easily see him, if they don't have a good year, which is very, very possible. I could easily see him being fired.
And then Eberflus, you know, they kind of butchered Justin Fields, and some of it was Fields. And so now you have a defensive guy that might be on thin ice, first year with Caleb Williams. So let's say it's a rocky season, and then you're going to fire your defensive guy, hire an offensive guy, and now it's a whole new playbook, whole new everything for year 2 Caleb Williams. It just feels like it sets up weird for the Bears if this is a rocky season.
I don't understand why the Bears, and this is not an Eberflus rip. I don't understand why the Bears in their predicament now went with a defensive guy.
It was such an easy, clean break opportunity, right?
100%. And I mean, look at the Vikings, defensive guy, right? Okay, this isn't working. He's struggling to get along with the quarterback. Quite frankly, he's struggling to get along with most players. What are we going to do? We're going to hire a guy that knows offense because that's clearly something that works, right?
Yep.
Like there's trends that you're just basically a sheep for following. And then there's trends where you're like, oh, I get the trend.
Yeah.
Quarterback's I get the trend.
And is this the best way? You got Caleb Williams. He's coming in, but he needs some refinement. There's some personality quirks. Is Matt Eberflus the best possible option in Chicago? And then Robert Saleh, credit to him. He is a brilliant defensive mind, and their defense remains competitive. And this might have just been a complete setup for a no-win situation where Aaron Rodgers comes in. It's the Aaron Rodgers show, and Robert Saleh has lost control of the ship. I think other head coaches could have handled all of this better. So I'm not trying to scapegoat or I'm not trying to defend him. But yeah, he's in the start updating your LinkedIn bin. Dennis Allen, 9-8 last year with kind of a transition Saints roster. I feel a little dirty putting him in the update your LinkedIn bin, but he's just, I don't know. I don't think he's going to be the coach there long term. So
he doesn't feel like, and he's had a chance before. He doesn't feel like a guy where he ever stands out. He just feels like a guy.
Yeah, he's
like
a jag.
Meh. He's like just a meh.
I agree. He's like, if there was an anonymous avatar or an anonymous silhouette for an NFL coach, it would be Dennis Allen.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, the next bin is the huge season coming up for these guys bin.
Okay.
And it's number 21, Brian Dable with the Giants.
Yep.
Number 20, Zach Taylor with the Bengals.
Okay.
And number 19, Nick Sirianni with the Eagles. Now, you might say, wait a second. Well, Dable and Sirianni make sense because the vehicle swerved off the road for those two guys 2 years ago. These might have been top 10, borderline top 8 coaches. Wow, look at the job Brian Dable did winning all those games with Daniel Jones. And wow, Nick Sirianni building up this Eagles team, this offense with Jalen Hurts and everything. And then the last 6 weeks for the Eagles, total disaster, playoff loss. And then the Giants and whatever they were doing last year was a train wreck.
Yep.
So I'm also putting Zach Taylor in here because you know what? You have an all-time talent in Joe Burrow, and there's been some injuries. You have crazy weapons on offense.
Right.
Yes, you play in a tough division. Burrow with the injuries, but I just think it's time to make some hay in Cincinnati here. And if Burrow stays healthy and things are kind of clunky, I could see Zach Taylor and his stock falling. So you could fight for him maybe being higher up on this list, but I'm putting him 20th.
Yeah, I think Dable and Sirianni, based on their teams, based on the markets, are in critical years. I think if Philadelphia or the Giants disappoint, and I actually think there's a pretty good chance that the Giants do, because I don't know how much more you can milk from Jones. I think those two could be fired fairly easily. Mm-hmm. Now, I know Sirianni took the team to the Super Bowl, but he's a polarizing figure. He's a weird dude. And the fact that Jalen Hurts has dropped off, I don't know that's going to end. Like, I don't know he's going to come back and play great. That's sort of a weird one. So, yeah, Zach Taylor, I think he's going to get a huge benefit of the doubt by the fact that Burrow was banged up for basically all of 2023. So I think the Bengals would have to be terrible for him to get fired. He could graduate to a hot seat for 2025.
Yep.
But I'm with you. Dable and Sirianni, to me, largely based on where they're working, I think easily could be fired, which for Dable would be too bad, because I do actually sort of like him and I think he's done some good things, but in that market, man, there's no patience. There's zero patience.
And in fairness to Zach Taylor, prior to 2023, when Joe Burrow was out for a big chunk, they did win 5 playoff games over 2 years in 2021-22, went to a Super Bowl, AFC champion,
Yep.
in 2021. So, that's probably, I could probably slot him up a couple more here, but that's when we get to the next category, the next bin, which is better than people give them credit for.
Okay.
This is probably the bin that Zach Taylor belongs in, to be honest with you. But number 18, Shane Steichen, Colts.
Yeah.
9 wins last year and a top 10 scoring offense.
Offensive guy. Yes.
With rookie Anthony Richardson and backup Gardner Minshew, and wins on the road against Baltimore and Houston.
Yep.
Nobody talked about the Colts last year.
Yep.
And they won 9 games, almost made the playoffs, and Shane Steichen did a great job keeping that thing together.
And the Eagles missed him. So he had been the OC there. And I don't think it's an accident that Hurts's play declined when Steichen left.
Yeah, totally agree. You can see, even like Kevin O'Connell leaving the Rams, they felt that for a year when these guys leave. Okay, number 17, and this is, again, the better than people give them credit for bin.
Yep.
Number 17, Todd Bowles. Really good defense in Tampa Bay.
Mm-hmm.
Super competitive the last 2 years. They win a playoff game last year with Baker Mayfield. Again, one of the more sort of quiet, anonymous coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And we remember that train wreck Jets tenure where he was the head coach there. But that organization has shown that they just don't have their bleep together. So Todd Bowles, better than people give him credit for. And then number 16, Kevin Stefanski, Cleveland.
Yep, this is a good one.
A top 10 scoring offense last year with 4 different quarterbacks, including Joe Flacco off the couch.
Yep.
And this is the best 4-year Cleveland Browns run since the late 1980s, and Marty Schottenheimer and Bernie Kosar and Ernest Biner and all those guys.
Yep. Just got an extension too.
Mm-hmm.
And deserved it. Yeah, Bowles. So here's my question. And it goes back to Saleh as well. Does being a Jets coach, if you are looking to hire a guy and he was only a Jets coach, do you consider that? Because like that team, you're
Adam
right.
Gase.
Well, Gase, I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. But I mean, he also got credit for working with Peyton in Denver when I'm sure he went and schlepped him coffee. Yeah. But I'm just saying, like with a guy like Bowles or Saleh, do you look at that and be like, well, he didn't do a good job with the Jets, so I'm not going to give him a chance? Or do you say the Jets are, because the Jets eat coaches up like almost no team, perhaps the Cardinals a little bit, but I mean,
the Browns before Stefanski.
Yeah, but I mean, the Jets are an absolute, just a death knell, I think, for a coach.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think I would judge Todd Bowles much more off of the last 2 years in Tampa Bay and just disregard what happened with the Jets.
Right.
And his coordinator work too under Bruce Arians and the respect that he garnered.
Yep.
So, okay, so we're halfway home, or just over halfway home. We've got 15 left, so I'll unveil the top 15 coaches in the NFL, presented in part by our friends at Federated Mutual Insurance Company. Federated's been helping us here at Score North as we build our business the last few years. And they can provide a guiding hand for you as well. Make sure if you're a business owner to stay focused on safety, preventing claims. Federated offers a customizable lineup of industry-specific coverages and risk management resources to help you continue your winning streak as a great business owner. At Federated Mutual Insurance Company, it's our business to protect yours. Find out more at federatedinsurance.com. And a shout out to our friends at Dennis Kirk as well. All you Ragnars who like to ride, it's riding season, at least when it's not raining. Motorcycles, ATVs, UTVs, dirt bikes. DennisKirk.com has over 185,000 parts, apparel, and accessories for those aforementioned vehicles. All the top brands. And you can check out the first annual Minnesota Garage Build Bike Show, powered by Dennis Kirk, Saturday, July 13th. From 10 a.m. until 5 p.m. at Running Aces Casino and Racetrack. We're talking dozens of custom-built motorcycles, hundreds of dollars in Dennis Kirk gift cards to class winners, local food trucks, a live DJ, and appearances from some legendary professional builders as well. All details at DennisKirk.com.
Football.
Okay. Let's get to the next bin here as we work our way through the head coach rankings. Mm-hmm. This next bin is the Kiss the Super Bowl ring bin.
Oh.
And it has 4 coaches. Number 15, Doug Peterson, Jacksonville. Number 14, Sean Payton, Denver. Number 13, Mike Tomlin, Pittsburgh. And number 12, Mike McCarthy, Dallas. These are all guys that I think a few years ago we would have said, oh yeah, cream of the crop. You know, these guys all have Super Bowls. And now all of them are just in interesting situations. I mean, if you look at like Doug Peterson, a couple of really competitive 9-win seasons the last 2 years. Trevor Lawrence has taken a big step forward.
Right.
If you look at where Jacksonville was at before the high ankle sprain, they were in a great spot to maybe get the 1 seed.
Right.
You know, Mike Tomlin, 11th all-time in wins among all NFL coaches, never below 500 going back to 2007 in Pittsburgh, but 0 playoff wins since 2016. It feels a little stale, but it's funny because stale is still like 9 or 10 wins in Pittsburgh. So, and then Mike McCarthy, 3 straight 12-win seasons in Dallas, number 1 scoring offense in 2 of the last 3 years, but trips all over himself and the team in the playoffs. They can't get to the conference championship round.
And it's still employed, which amazes me.
Yeah. And then I'll get, Sean Payton, kind of a weird year last year, tried to resuscitate Russell Wilson, did a decent job. They still won 8 games or whatever it was. He has a better career win percentage than Mike Holmgren, Tom Coughlin, and Pete Carroll. 16 years as a head coach. Sean Payton's worst season is 7 wins. So these guys are all very credible. They've got championship pedigrees, and they all have kind of interesting situations that they're in right now.
So Peyton is largely at times a horse's ass, but he has a really good offensive mind. And it's funny because he is from a class that predates a lot of the guys that are coaching now, but he was sort of the same thing. Like he was the Giants OC, I think in 2001 for the debacle, the 41 donut game. And if he gets the right quarterback there in Denver, and I don't know that Bo Nix is that guy, I do think that there's a chance that there could be a little bit of a resurgence there. McCarthy, I gotta think, is on thin ice if they don't advance again. Like all of these playoff things, you would think eventually are going to catch up to him. I think Peterson was largely a victim of the Philadelphia culture. And by that, I don't just mean the Eagles. I mean the fans as well.
Yeah.
I don't know the fact that Andy Reid coached there forever is truly a testament to his greatness, because that is a hard market to survive in. I don't even know that I really lost faith in Doug. I think he got a shelf life there, and he definitely had success, but I don't think it's a surprise that he was fired there. And Sirianni's the same way. I would not be surprised if he got blown out. Doesn't mean he's a bad coach. So of those 4 names, Peterson still intrigues me the most, because to your point, Jacksonville was in great shape. I still think that Trevor Lawrence is when healthy, really good QB.
He takes a lot of slander, oddly. It's like, have you watched him before the high ankle sprain? That dude was really ascending. I
think because in college he was so dominant and so good that we expected this guy to walk on water, basically. I think for guys like Luck and Lawrence, I think our expectations get so jacked up that they can play well, and we still say, well, they're not doing this, they haven't won a Super Bowl, blah blah blah. But I think Jacksonville, I think of this list, Peterson and Jacksonville, if Lawrence stays healthy, could be in incredibly good shape.
Yep. So I guess it kind of feels like McCarthy, Tomlin, and Sean Payton's stock has gone down the last few years. Not like fire their ass necessarily, but just, okay, I need to see a little something. And Doug Peterson, I mean, his stock kind of went down the year after they won the Super Bowl, and he's trying to get it back up.
Yeah.
So
Tomlin is great, but Tomlin, if he had been hired by an ordinary team, and Pittsburgh is not, they've had 3 coaches since 1969, which is unbelievable. I think Tomlin's on his 3rd job by now.
Yeah. It's crazy. You're right. Like the Browns have had 12 head coaches since they came back or something crazy.
Right?
and the Steelers have had 3 since the 60s. So,
Yeah. Chuck Noll.
okay, the next bin is the young quarterback whisperers bin,
Okay.
and it includes 3 head coaches. Number 11, Kevin O'Connell, Vikings.
Okay.
And we can come back to all these.
Sure.
Number 10, Mike McDaniel, Dolphins. And number 9, Matt LaFleur, Packers. So on KOC, I will readily admit this feels like a bit of a homer ranking when you start to lay out some of these other guys. Like I literally have him above the 4 guys directly below him that we just went over. All have Super Bowl pedigrees. Zach Taylor further down has been to a Super Bowl. Kevin Stefanski had a top 10 scoring offense with 4 different quarterbacks last year. So resume-wise, Kevin O'Connell does not pass the smell test to be this high.
Right.
So call this ranking a gut feeling going into his 3rd year that I feel like he connects really well with players. He's really sharp. He elevated Kirk Cousins as a late game 4th quarter comeback guy, high leverage guy. I mean, hell, he had Nick Mullins throwing for 400 yards at the end of the season. Josh Dobbs coming in off the street, winning football games, not knowing his teammates' names. So this is probably a little high, but it's just kind of a gut feeling that he seems like a really sharp connector of a head coach, and I have him 11th.
Interesting. Okay, so I'm going to give you 3 names here I think belong in the conversation or above him. Zach Taylor, Kevin
That's fair.
Stefanski, Peterson.
Okay.
I think those 3 deserve, because like you want to talk about quarterbacks, look at what Cleveland went through as you discussed last year. It's ridiculous. I mean, Cleveland should have been bad, and I don't know how, but they weren't. Stefanski gets a ton of credit for that. Taylor, now the question is Burrow, when he's healthy, so good that he needs Taylor, or he doesn't? I think
there's a lot of Burrow here. A lot of Burrow.
But in O'Connell's case, he did get Kirk, who was a veteran who knew what he was doing. And in the regular season, if Kirk is set up to succeed, which he was, I think Kirk is fine. I think the question then becomes playoffs. So, yes, this is a bit of a homer ranking, but I don't think there's a ton of names of, oh my God, this guy, prime Sean Payton. Yes. Is top 5.
Like, would you rather have current Sean Payton for the next 3 years
That's
or
what
Kevin
I'm thinking.
O'Connell?
Yeah, I'm seeing this as very current.
Current Mike Tomlin. It's the offense is a disaster.
Yeah.
They haven't won a playoff game since 2016.
Current Mike McCarthy, I'll take O'Connell. I'll take my chances.
Yeah. So, and then Mike McDaniel at 10, just offensive brilliance as a schemer. I mean, they draft, Devon Achane out of Texas A&M in the 3rd round, and he's averaging 8 yards a carry in that offense and putting up crazy numbers. They hung 70 points on Denver at one point last year. All that speed. So they got to figure it out on the road, January. What does that look like? But Mike McDaniel comes in just brilliant. And then Matt LaFleur, I know a lot of Vikings fans are going to hate that I put LaFleur above O'Connell. But, man, that dude has won 68% of his games with the Packers. He elevated Aaron Rodgers. Go look at Rodgers' performance, regular season anyways. The first, 2 or 3 years with Matt LaFleur.
And then Jordan Love.
And then Jordan Love comes on. He becomes one of the top 10 or 12 quarterbacks in the league the last half of the year. So, credit where it's due with what Matt LaFleur has done in Green Bay. So that's the young quarterback whisperers bin.
Yeah, LaFleur cannot be behind O'Connell. And McDaniel and O'Connell is probably a discussion, but I would defer to McDaniel.
Yeah. Their offense has gotten to a completely different level.
No, I think
it's not fair. Like, Tua's pretty talented, but I don't think anyone looks at Tua as this generationally physically talented guy. And the fact that he's taken Tua and elevated him to look at the numbers he's putting up.
And just the fact that McDaniel gets his team to play as hard as he does. I mean, he is, like, when he got the job, as we discussed at the time, can this guy, command a room of football players? And clearly the answer now is yes.
Yeah.
But that in itself, like O'Connell comes in and he played the position, and he's not a thick guy, but he's a big guy. Like, he commands a room. McDaniel walks into a room and he's got to grab that room. Like O'Connell could probably not say a word, and you're like, okay, this guy.
It's quarterback energy. Yeah.
Exactly. McDaniel, you'd be like, who's this geography teacher?
Yeah.
So he does get a lot of
cracking
credit.
jokes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the next bin is the would probably beat your ass in a physical altercation bin.
Oh, come on, Dan.
And it's number 8, D'Amico Ryans, Houston Texans. Yeah. And number 7, Dan Campbell, Detroit Lions.
Dan Campbell.
So D'Amico Ryans, man, he comes in as a defensive guy, breathes a whole new life into that organization, and is also in charge of just the macro development of CJ Stroud. I know we're going to give credit to like the offensive coaches, but D'Amico Ryans is there helping to mold a young quarterback as well. And seeing CJ Stroud explode like that in his first year and what they're building, D'Amico Ryans is at the heart of what they're building right now in Houston. And I think a lot of people would consider them one of the top 5 or 6 teams to win the Super Bowl going into this year. And then number 7, Dan Campbell. The Lions are 20-7 in their last 27 regular season games going back to 2022.
Gotta believe.
Dominant in the trenches, especially on offense, and then Aiden Hutchinson on defense.
Right.
He's a motivational master. Maybe it burns out after the next year. I don't know if it's a 10-year shelf life, but right. Dan Campbell has a franchise that's been an embarrassment for 50 years, believing and winning more than they have in a long time.
How do he and the Lions rebound from the loss in the playoffs to San Fran is my question. Mm-hmm. There were some very questionable decisions made. And I mean, that's where you make your hay, right? As a coach.
If we're ranking like tactical strategic coaches, he's probably not 7th, but the total package.
Right. But to your point though, like, because I have been like from the day I saw him, I'm like, this is going to at some point wear out, right? Like at some point in time. And to his credit, one is not, and 2, the team has been, I mean, it's the Lions. So it's impressive. But I guess my question is, does what happened at the end of last season, does it leave a impression? Does it leave a lasting effect?
It might. I think to your point about like they're the Lions, that there's always this gravitational pull toward disaster and mediocrity. And it's like 50 years of football, maybe more, 60 plus years of football insecurity among the fan base, the ownership group. Mm-hmm. And he had to fight against all of that inertia. And I think it's real. Like, I feel like Minnesota teams, it's palpable, the desperation and the insecurity of us, right? Like, please just win a Super Bowl. Please, Timberwolves. Oh, here we go again. Like, that has been palpable in Detroit for a long time. And Dan Campbell, as a coach, as a personality, even just like how physically imposing he is, he's kind of the perfect foil for 50, 60 years of Detroit Lions bloopers.
Yeah, I think the difference is like the Lions, it's a speed bump, right? And like now he's got them past the speed bump and they're headed more towards where the Vikings are, which is not a speed bump, it's a damn wall. Like that's the final frontier. Is can you get over the wall? And it feels like the Vikings have struggled to do that. Well, now Campbell's got them over the speed bump. And the question is, now the next problem is not a speed bump. It is a wall coming up. Can you scale that? And like, that's where the Vikings are in not being able to get past that wall. And like, is Campbell the right guy there? I don't know, but he definitely gets the benefit of the doubt now.
Yeah. Okay. The next bin is the who's got it better than us bin.
Oh, the Harbaugh bin.
And it's number 6, Jim Harbaugh, and number 5, John Harbaugh. Mm-hmm. So I know that Jim's been out of the NFL for like a decade, but as an NFL coach, he was 44-19 with 5 playoff wins in 4 years. And in 4 years, 3 trips to the NFC Championship game or Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. And then if you look at the quarterbacks he's molded throughout the years in college and in the NFL, Andrew Luck, Alex Smith, Colin Kaepernick, J.J. McCarthy, turning him into a national champion and a top 10 draft pick. So the work he does with offensive lines, it'll be interesting because now with Justin Herbert, you've got this incredible Ferrari of a passer.
And he loves to run.
But you bring Greg Roman back in to be your offensive coordinator, and those guys together are always like dead last in the NFL in pass attempts.
Right.
Are they going to have to, I mean, is some of that historically because they've had to, or now in a situation where you could throw the ball 40 times if you wanted because you've got this guy? Do they pull back on the reins? It'll be interesting to see what that looks like. So you got Jim, and then John Harbaugh at 5. One of the best win percentages of any NFL coach in history. I will say only 2 playoff wins since 2014.
Yeah.
Dominant in the regular season and still runs into some snags in the playoffs. We'll see.
He's 1 year shy or behind Mike Tomlin, right? Because Tomlin left the Vikings
Yeah, I think that's right.
after 2006
Mhm.
and became coach of the Steelers in 2007. And if I'm not mistaken, John Harbaugh was 2008, if I'm right on that
I think you're correct. Yeah.
which is a remarkable run again.
Yep. So the Harbaughs are in this bin. And then, okay, number 4. So we have a singular coach in a singular bin here.
Wow.
It's the if only the Chiefs didn't exist bin. And it's reserved for Sean McDermott of the Buffalo Bills.
Interesting.
I had him lower off the top of my head, and then I started digging in.
Yep.
Man, if you look, and it got rocky there in the middle of the season, but I almost feel like how rocky it got for him with that article coming out, and then how the team responded, and rallied around him, because that could have been the opening for the whole organization to be like, yeah, this dude's an ass.
Yeah.
Get this guy. And instead it was like, that's our coach. And then they roll off a bunch of wins. So if you look at the last few years in Buffalo, the Bills are averaging 11 wins per year in the regular season since 2019. They've had the number 1 scoring differential in 2 of the last 3 years, a slew of top 5 defenses and top 5 offenses. And he's now, is he perfect? Are there things to nitpick? Of course. But if you look at body of work the last 5 or 6 years, it's like Chiefs and Bills are at the top of the pile, and they happen to play in the same conference, and one team is an all-time dynasty. So
imagine that, not being able to get past the team. I do think that they definitely missed Abel there. I think he and Allen 100% clicked. And, McDermott, if I'm not mistaken, McDermott was an assistant with Andy Reid when Childress was Reid's non-play calling OC in Philadelphia. But yeah, there's definitely been something positive there. Now, with some of their key guys gone, I'm really curious to see. I could see if Buffalo slides, and that's the unfortunate thing. If you can't get past the hump at some point in time, the window just does close. And while they still have a really good quarterback, they've lost some key players. So I could see by the time you do this next year, McDermott being on the hot seat list, because I'm curious how things trend there.
Could be. By the way, McDermott spent 11 years working under Andy Reid in Philadelphia from 99, and then he was the defensive coordinator for a couple years, 2009, 2010.
Went to Carolina eventually, right? Because I think Chili talked to him about coaching here at one point as an assistant.
Yeah, he was the defensive coordinator for the Panthers team that went to the Super Bowl. It was 15-1.
Okay.
So multiple years there. Okay. The next bin is I think it's the bin of defining coaches of this era. Mm-hmm. And it's number 3, Kyle Shanahan, San Francisco, and number 2, Sean McVay, Rams. So Kyle Shanahan, I know that he doesn't have a Super Bowl yet, but if you look at the rest of his credentials, regularly putting up top 5 offenses, top 5 defenses, turning Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy into Super Bowl quarterbacks.
Yeah.
8 playoff wins before turning 45 years old for Kyle Shanahan. And then Sean McVay, so first 5 years as a head coach, youngest head coach ever, 7 playoff wins and 2 trips to the Super Bowl with 1 championship. Offensive innovation, right? Cooper Kupp, 1,900 yards. Puka Nacua, 5th-round guy. Right. Boom, putting up, 1,400 yards.
Right.
So they do the one rebuild year after they win the Super Bowl to take a deep breath. He almost goes to broadcasting and retires. Sticks around, and boom, 1 reset year, and they're back to 10 wins, playoffs, putting up a fight. So Sean McVay, number 2, and then that leaves the next bin, number 1, the all-time Mount Rushmore of head coaches bin, Andy Reid. I think he's on that. I think he's got a fight. It's like Belichick's on it.
Right.
But Andy Reid is 4th all-time in wins, 2nd all-time in playoff wins, 3rd all-time in Super Bowl wins. If you're making a Mount Rushmore of all-time NFL head coaches, Andy Reid deserves strong consideration.
All right, because I'm coming up with a list right now. This would be fun because this is tough. I've got Don Shula, Tom Landry, Chuck Noll, Bill Walsh,
Bill
Some
Walsh,
here might
yeah.
say Bud. I don't think you can put Bud on that.
You got to have a Super Bowl.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a fun exercise. Belichick, Reed, at least a contender.
Parcells.
Yeah. Ooh,
I think I would take Reed over Parcells, but
ooh, that'd be a big. This would be a fight to the death.
Vince Lombardi.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely.
So number 1, Andy Reid. Number 2, Sean McVay. Number 3, Kyle Shanahan. Number 4, Sean McDermott. Number 5, Jim Harbaugh. 5, John Harbaugh. 6, Jim Harbaugh. 7, Dan Campbell. 8, DeMeco Ryans. 9, Matt LaFleur. 10, Mike McDaniel. 11, Kevin O'Connell. And then Mike McCarthy, Mike Tomlin, Sean Payton, Doug Peterson round out the top 15 with Kevin Stefanski at 16.
Yep.
There you go.
Yep. So
after doing this, I almost feel like Stefanski's a little low. But Zach Taylor's probably low.
Yep.
And O'Connell might be a little high, but I don't know. I just gut feeling. I think he's a dude. I think Kevin O'Connell, and I think you're going to see it the next couple years.
Yeah. Current day, as I said, I think Taylor, Stefanski, and Doug Peterson have an argument with O'Connell. But beyond that, present day, I think O'Connell, like if he was in that group, it's probably fair.
Mm-hmm.
Because after that, like your start updating the LinkedIn thing is absolutely correct. Gannon, Eberflus, Saleh, Dennis Allen.
Sorry, Dennis Allen. Sorry, dude. I hate to do it.
Dennis
man.
Allen's a coordinator, dude. I feel like he's a coordinator, and there's nothing wrong with that.
It's fine.
Here's the question that will be answered this season: is Brian Dable a coordinator?
Yeah, I mean, for them to sort of pick Daniel Jones as the horse,
I know.
It would have been really interesting if they would have said, "Screw it, we're going to go get," because they were picking 6th, so they could have gone and grabbed any of these quarterbacks that were available, and they decided not to.
And you signed him to that big contract. I mean, we joke about this, but you signed him to that contract, which to me is a ridiculous. I mean, if we talk about Kirk's original contract being, in part because of what he did against Ed Donatell's defense, and I know we sort of yuck it up about that one, but it's idiotic. Like, how do you? I would throw that film out.
No,
I throw both of those games, a win and a loss. I throw them out. I'm like, I'm not going to watch this because this is going to influence a key decision, and you literally almost have the answers to the test.
And then it leads to the altering of careers, and it's kind of amazing the butterfly effect. So, all right, let me know.
Good stuff.
You can email via the feedback tab in the Score North app or the YouTube comments section.
You'll get some pushback for being a homer, and then you'll get some pushback for O'Connell being behind LaFleur, and
for the
pushback.
For the oysters, I can push back. It's okay. I can take it. I'm a big boy. I can take it.
Tuna.
Yep. That's a wrap on Purple Daily here. The 32 NFL head coaches ranked. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
Amen.